So there's penguins, and they're fun. They're awesome. They make sounds. They'll scream at the ship as you go by, just and seeing this giant orange floating mess coming by, it's amazing. And again, got to show penguin pictures. What do we do while we're there? And this is just to get into the little bit of science that we do. We use nets and other gear that I'll show in a second to collect animals that live on the bottom. Okay? I'm mostly interested, I'm not really interested in the fish. We're not interested in the penguins or seals or other mammals. We're interested in the invertebrate communities. So the invertebrate animals that live on the bottom. And it turns out most of the invertebrate organisms that live in Antarctica only live in Antarctica. They're what they call endemic. They only live there. And you get some really neat types of animals. And how we get those is we put these nets down in the water. This is actually called a Blake trawl. You drag that over the bottom, and again, we're in about somewhere between 1,000 to 1,500 feet of water here. We put the net down, we drag it across the bottom for a few minutes, and then we bring it up. Okay? Just to show you, this is a net coming up. These are two of the ship workers. These are the marine techs. They're spectacular people. They chain themselves to the back here. You can see their rope. They have a belt on so that if they were to get a wave and popped over the back, they wouldn't hit the water, and more importantly, they wouldn't hit the water and then the propellers that are right there. We learn very, very quickly as scientists, you keep out of the yellow zone unless they tell us. It's one of those you don't even put your toe in there. It's a big, big no-no. The net comes up, and they take the sample that we collect, and they put it in this wooden box that we built. Sometimes it doesn't bring us much. You get a couple of things. You get a couple of fish as bycatch. You get a couple of sea stars. You get an octopus maybe. Sometimes you get a nasty, tangled mess of Antarctic algae and bryozoans, which are these little colonial animals. And then you have to sit and pick through all this stuff to find the stuff that you're really looking for. And sometimes you get a nice ball of mud, like this. And you still have to search through all that. And you do that by using sorting tables and big sieves and things like that and hoses. You have to pick through that to get the animals we're looking for. And we do it all simply because we're not going to get back to that place. We may not ever get back to that place to get another sample like this. So there's probably new species that haven't been seen by science in here. And I guarantee you over in our lab over in Brooks, Avril's got at least one, if not two, brand new species of the organism she's working on sitting there that we have to still describe as a part of her thesis project. Yes, ma'am. I'll show you that. Why is that? I don't know why that picture just isn't there. So we work on the deck. We take a sample, and we pick through it. We call it just literally picking the sample. You see all these trays? We went to the local supermarket in Punta Arenas before we left, bought all of the dining room trays that we could get, the plastic ones, the cafeteria trays that we used to as a kid take sledding down hills out of the cafeteria, and probably. But we bought all those out, and so we sort through everything there. You can put samples through this if it's really muddy. This is a sieve table. It's got the holes in the table become increasingly small as you go from top to bottom, and you can take layers off. So you'll get all the big animals in the top, the small animals will go all the way through to the bottom, and you can sort through it that way. And you can put a hose over the top of it to wash the mud through. And the deck becomes increasingly muddy as you do that. That's what that picture was. It's not showing up. It's a picture of a guy laying in the trawl in mud. And I don't know why it's not working.
What's the temperature right here that you're working at?
My wife is very, very mad because I'd send her an email every few hours. You know, we were able to send emails while we were there. It was colder here when we were right here, so she was not pleased. So we were probably at what about? It probably was right at about freezing right here. It never got bitter cold. We had maybe 1 or 2 days where the wind chill was probably -20. On our last 2 cruises, but it was completely tolerable. Think Michigan in winter. I know. And everybody's looking at me like, you're in Antarctica and you're... Okay. So we sort through the samples, we pick through the samples, and, you know, everybody wants photo ops. So you do fun things like this. Avril's terrified. This is the former chair of biology, Dr. Steve Roberts. This is why we're here tonight. This is pretty much his idea. The photography exhibit and us being the panel, or Avril and myself being up here. This is Christoph Held. He's a German scientist that we brought along with us. Matt Galaska went to Albion College and was my technician in my research lab for a little while before he went to a grad program. He's in the grad program at Auburn. So there's at least 4 Michiganders and 1 German in this picture. Former Michigander, anyway. Every now and then you bring up something really weird in the trawl. You pick stuff out. We're looking at things and we see things, and all of a sudden you get that tunnel vision. I'm looking for sea spiders. She's looking for starfish. He's looking for this and that. And you get tunnel vision, and then all of a sudden somebody puts something in one of the trays and you don't know what it is. And I love showing this picture. Anybody know what this is? There's a penguin without a wing down there. We sat there for about half an hour trying to figure out what that was, and all of a sudden I realized, oh my gosh, it's a penguin wing. It's natural order of things. More than likely something ate the penguin, missed the wing, and it went to the bottom and we brought it up. I can say for all of the people thinking, oh God, did he get a permit for that? And I can see my chair over there. Did he get it went back. We put it back. My collaborator and I, the co-PI on the project, and I both thought, what can we get that back as? We have to call it something. We didn't. We threw it back, unfortunately.
How close can you get to a penguin?
So it depends on if you're on the station or if you're in the ship. If you're in the ship, what is from the bow to the water, about 15 feet maybe? It's maybe 15, 20 feet, and they don't run from the ships very much. Once the ship hits the iceberg they're on or the piece of ice that's floating, they'll jump into the water most times. They'll run away from the ship. Sometimes they're not smart enough and they'll swim right in front of the ship. But the Antarctic, the U.S. is a part of what's called the Antarctic Treaty. There are rules to what you can and can't do, and penguins are one of those charismatic animals that's listed in the treaty. You cannot approach them, you cannot disturb them unless it's for safety for your life. Like whales and seals and dolphins, the Marine Mammal Act prevents us from approaching them with motors on and things like that. So it's illegal, for example, if ever was a penguin and I wanted to take pictures, all these pictures of tourists coming up to penguins like this, completely illegal. If you're a U.S. citizen, you can be arrested for that. So there are rules against this stuff. Now, that being said, there was one time when I was standing on a beach when we were having a scientist's birthday party on Deception Island, which is a hollowed out volcano. We're standing there, and the next thing I know is from me to the edge of the stage away, a penguin swims up out of the water, jumps, and walks right toward me. And literally walked right by me, and I sat there, I don't know what to do. Do I walk away? And it didn't care that I was there. It just walked right by, might as well put its flipper up and give me a high five. In my head. Okay, so where did we go on these 2 trips? You see South America right here. We had a false start. We had to go down and back, so that's why we have an odd number of Drake Passage crossings. We came down, and we went all the way around the continent to McMurdo Station, which is where we ended up the first trip. This is the first time we were able to sample. There's 2 different seas. This is the Bellinghausen, this is the Amundsen, and then there's the third, the Ross Sea right here. The Bellinghausen and the Amundsen are 2 of those pretty much holy grails for benthic ecologists to get to collect animals. We were able to do both of those on this trip from December through February. On the second trip, we were supposed to go back to the Bellinghausen, but it turns out we ended up only able to get down to about right here. This is where Palmer Station is. And then we were able to go over into the Weddell Sea over here. Completely off plan, mostly because last year, due to a bunch of things, if you want to talk about ice formation and climate change and all that stuff, we can talk about that over at the photos later. The sea ice was worse in Antarctica last year than it has been in 50 years. And we couldn't get through it with the ship. People were actually stuck at Palmer Station for an extra 2 months. So they'd been working there for 6 months. Imagine having to stay an extra 2 months past your day when you got to go home. And that's so the people here, they were jumping on any ship that went by to get home. I know the National Geographic tourist ship. Yes, ma'am. So they progressively do run out of certain things. They have enough food, I believe, if everything stopped and they couldn't get supplies in. Number one, I think they would airdrop something. But number two, they have enough food at least for an extra buffer year there. Now, it's going to progressively get worse. There's going to be frozen meat, but you lose things even after the ship drops supplies off. You lose what they call freshies. You lose your greens, like your lettuces. You lose your fruits. You lose that stuff. Not at Palmer. At McMurdo, they do have hydroponic growing facilities, and they do that a lot, mostly because they feed up to 2,000 people a day, 3 meals, and the food is stellar. At least, they cooked a meal for us at Palmer.
Palmer
In my time
awesome.
at Palmer, they have a professional chef. He does, at least the one that I got to meet and hang out with when I was at Palmer Station. They paid a chef from a 5-star restaurant in Maine to spend 6 months there, and then he gets, essentially what the station personnel get is they get paid 6 months. That's their full year salary. So then they have 6 months, and most of them travel for a month or two, and then they go work another job. And this guy got to work the summers in Maine and did his other time down here. So that's what he was doing anyway. And a lot of the station crew do that. Some people like to ask, how dark was it? How light was it? Did you have 24 hours of day? Did you have 24 hours of night? In a lot of cases, yes, I have. Both. This is high noon one day. Did we have, I can't remember if it was your trip or if this was the first trip. This was as light as it got most of that trip. I believe it was the other way around.
The other trip?
Yeah. So most of the time you can end up sitting on the back deck with flashlights pointed on you. This is Dave Branson. He was a master's student in the biology department, graduated a couple of years ago. He's now a PhD student at Auburn. This is Abby Hollingsworth. She's now in the creative writing program here at CMU. She was an undergrad that went with me actually on both trips. And again, you sit there and you pick through stuff, cold, wet, snow, ice, whatever. Additionally, we got to use things like this, plankton nets, to collect samples. We're looking for larvae of these animals to try and do some of the biology on them. So you could put these plankton nets in the water to catch the eggs and larvae and other stuff in the water column, not just on the bottom. We were also able to use this thing called a yo-yo camera. It's a metal box. I believe it's about 3.5 feet on each side and about 2.5 feet tall. It's got this chain that runs down to the bottom with a lead weight on it. The lead weight hits the bottom, so say at about 1,000 feet, the lead weight will hit the bottom, causes a strobe light flash to go off, and it takes a picture. And as that goes off, it sends a signal up to the ship that goes bzzz, and the guy working the winch raises and lowers it like a yo-yo. So it goes up and down and up and down, and as the ship moves, and it moves very, very slowly, over about a kilometer transect, it'll take about 200-300 pictures. The guy is really good. And what the pictures look like are amazing in a lot of cases. You can tell what's living on the bottom, not just from what you bring up in a net, but you can see all this stuff. I didn't really pick out the best one here, I'm sorry, but you can see sponges, you can see brittle stars. You can see things like this guy. This is one of the bigger charismatic sea stars that you can find. You can see fish in these pictures. You can see the sea spiders that we work with in these pictures. We also take mud samples for those interested in the things that live in the mud, not just the animals, but I'm working on a project with another biologist looking at the microbial community, so the microbes and bacteria that live in these sediments. And then you get to, again, the best part about it is you get to see the cool stuff down there. You get to see the crab-eater seals. You get to see the penguins. But as Christoph, the guy that works for the German service, said, Antarctic tourists get ripped off. You pay a lot of money, you get to go down there. Yes, ma'am?
Are there polar bears?
No, no polar bears in the Southern Ocean. Polar bears are exclusively north. So, yeah, that is not the first time I've heard that question either. Yes, ma'am?
Can you say about the tourist ship?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Tourists get ripped off because they don't get to see the best part of Antarctica, and that's underwater. Okay? You get to see sea urchins, brittle stars. You get to see that underwater community that I say pound for pound is the best in the world. Okay? You get to see things like these anemones. You get to see sea squirts. This is Odentaster, the dominant starfish down there.
What's the temperature on the surface of the ground?
On the surface of the water, right there, the temperature can range anywhere from about plus 2 Celsius to minus 2. Because of the salt content, seawater can actually do what's called supercooling and get down to almost minus 2 Celsius, about minus 1.8, 1.9, I believe, is how cold it can get right there. And you can tell if you're scuba diving and it's 2 degrees Celsius one day and minus 1 point something the next day, you can tell the difference. It actually, you can feel that difference. Even if it's only 1 degree Celsius, you can tell.